In every game, there are contestants who willingly participate, adhere to the rules, and accept their status as either winner or loser. But there is a peculiar and popular game where the contestants unwillingly participate and often lose. Welcome to the Divorce Game. I'm your host, Pamela Elaine Nichols. Children of divorce are often caught in the competition of their parents' divorce. They are the unwilling contestants, who too often are the losers emotionally, socially, and financially. This show gives adults who were once children of divorce an opportunity to educate parents about the impact of their game and offer new rules so children can win. The name of today's divorce game is the Avoid Responsibility Game. Here to describe this game and set new rules is my guest, Ian Fitzgerald. Ian is passionate about contributing and making a difference for others, in whatever way provides the most for people. Ian stands for a world that works for everyone with no one or no thing left out, and that all people experience love. Ian is a truck driver who also spends his time as a filmmaker, reviewing films on Instagram and YouTube, and coaching. Ian will share his experience and offer rules to parents to play a fair game that brings lasting positive memories for their children. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. You know, before we get into the topic, the Avoid Responsibility Game, which is really my favorite, I just really wanted to touch on the introduction that I made about you. It's a different kind of introduction as ever before. You are someone who stands for no one or no thing left behind, a world of love. Like, where does that kind of perspective come from?
Well, I've done a lot of self-development work, and so there's like two things. I want to separate that question into, so there's like the world that works for everyone with no thing or no one left out, and then there's everyone experiences love, right? So I would separate those. And the first one is really about resources. Like, we have enough resources to provide for everyone in the world. And it's an idea that time has come where that no person is without shelter or without food because we have the resources to provide that. So I'm a stand that happens.
I see.
You get what I mean? Like,
yeah. So that comes from an abundance perspective.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's reality that we have those resources. Yeah. It's just how to provide that, how to get that done.
Okay, then the other part is you separate it out as love.
Yeah. So
now wait, I gotta say this.
Yeah.
You know, everybody talks about love.
Right.
And like, are we talking about love? Or are we talking about love in a different way?
Well, I'm not talking about romantic love, if that's what you're talking about, because that is the special thing. That's like the most special thing, I think. But I'm talking about more of a generalized acceptance and an appreciation. And when we're with people in life, we have an opportunity to be a particular way. And when people are with me, I want them to experience that I love them. And I want them to know that if they ever feel like there's not someone, Ian loves you. You know?
Oh, wow. I feel the love.
Yeah, right on. Right.
That's great. All right, so let's talk about the Avoid Responsibility Game. And I'm wondering if at some point you want to tie in the self-development that you've done, that you just shared with us, that you've done a lot of self-development. So, Ian, what is the Avoid Responsibility Game, and then that your parents played, and how did it play out?
Yeah, so my parents were divorced when I was 3 years old. So I really don't have a real remembering them as a couple at all.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, but what we talked about before this interview about how did that play out? How did their divorce play out in my life? And you know, a lot of it for me was sort of playing them against each other. But what that was about was they wanted to be the better parent. So it's like, oh, you know, I'll give Ian what he wants, and then he'll love me more. But I think deeper, you know, and this has come with perspective. Obviously, as a child, I was just like, okay, how can I get what I want? And how can I play them against each other?
So you obviously learned this later on, because if they were divorced when you were 3, when you got a little bit older, or were they giving you what you wanted at 3 and you remember that?
I remember my earliest memory, really, this is a little embarrassing, but I was about...
We like that. We love those stories.
I was about like 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
And my mom was weaning me from breastfeeding. I know that's late to stop breastfeeding, but hey.
Hey,
I like
no judgment here.
I like breastfeeding, apparently. And my mom, I remember my parents were divorced, so I'd be with my dad on the weekends, and I came home, and I went to breastfeed it. And by the way, I didn't remember that it was about breastfeeding. Okay. My memory was I went upstairs and got in a fight with my mom.
Okay.
But I talked to my mom about this, and she was like, yeah, I was weaning you. That's why you got mad at me. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, but when she did that, in my head, I was like, no.
When she said no to the breastfeeding?
Yes,
okay.
She probably said no several times until I finally got it, and then I got really upset. And then in my 4-year-old, 3-year-old head, I said, I'm going to get you back for that.
Ooh.
Already.
Okay.
Even at that young age. So that's something for parents to get too, that your kids are far more advanced than you think they are.
Good point.
And so what I did is I went downstairs and I told my dad, I want to live with you.
Oh, goodness. Did you call him on the phone, or he was downstairs?
He was still downstairs dropping us off. He was dropping us off. So he's like, okay, I want you to live with me. So I go, okay, good. So my mom comes downstairs, and my dad goes, Ian's coming to live with me.
Oh, dear.
And my mom,
this is not going to be good.
Right.
We know this already.
And so my mom, obviously, is like, she called my dad Sonny. My dad's name's John, but she called him Sonny. She goes, Sonny, he's not coming with you. He's not coming. And now, I remember this. This is like this huge fight that's happening over me. Now, at the time, my mom lived with my aunt, so my cousins were there, and I have a brother and a sister. They're there, so I had 2 cousins: my brother, my sister, my aunt, my mom, my dad, and his new girlfriend. Right?
Okay, all in this scene you're describing.
In this living room in Bryn Mawr. Anyway, in this duplex that we lived. Anyway, so. That's not important, but what's important is that they're all there, and so this is happening. The TV's on, whatever. They start yelling at each other, like back and forth. You should come. He should live with me. He wants to, but she's like, he's not coming. I can't believe you're even like entertaining this. Like, he's a child. You shouldn't be listening. He's like, well, this is what he wants. So the argument elevates. My dad grabs one arm, my mom grabs the other. They lift me up. They're pulling me in the air. Now, I can joke about this. It's a pretty traumatic event, but it's very...
It was traumatic for sure at the time.
Completely. Now,
of course.
I've done a lot of work, and I am totally fine with the event now. Okay.
I can tell because you're smiling. You got a dimple going on with it. So
right.
You might have been clear about this, but go ahead.
So eventually, my dad lets go. My mom pulls me into a chair, and then they continue to fight. My dad's new girlfriend tackles my mom. The cops get called.
Okay, wait. Are you not making this? Are you making this up?
This is not made up at all. This is not made up at all.
I know it's
the police
probably more common than people talk about.
Right. And the police come and they go, "Who do you want to live with?"
They asked you?
Yeah.
At that young age?
Well, first they talked to my parents, and then they asked me, and I said I want to live with my dad, because I was still determined to get my mom back. So then that night I went stay with my dad, but it was really untenable for me to live there, given his work situation or whatever. So I eventually went back to living with my mom.
But you live with your dad okay, so let's go back, because I need to decompress from this.
Maybe a couple days I lived with my dad. Okay.
I need to decompress from this very real story, and probably, as I said, more common than people let on, that this kind of conflict goes on between parents who are divorcing, divorce, and the child that's in the middle.
Right.
So the name of the game is Avoid Responsibility game that the parents play, and I want to swing back around to that, but I'm hearing a different game. I'm hearing a game that a child plays against mom and dad.
Absolutely.
And so can you just talk a little bit about, like, 3, 4 years old is very young to have even a concept in my opinion, of a game like that. But you played it, and you didn't play it just then. You played it in other times in your parents' lives. So talk a little bit about this game, and then we'll come back to the void responsibility.
Well, I think one of the things that had me be more developed was I was the youngest. So I was living with my cousins. They were both older than me, and I had my sister is 4 years older, my brother's 6 years older.
Okay.
So I was in a sort of more advanced conversation from the beginning.
That makes sense.
Right, so that would have me sort of more in that world. But to answer your question more directly, it was like I saw that I could manipulate things. And of course I continued to manipulate.
Yeah.
Because I got what I wanted. I got the attention. I got to get back at my mom. I got to sort of be in control a little bit.
But you had to have seen that somewhere. Somewhere you had to have seen, you do this and that, then you can get what you want. Did you see that play, even if it was just on TV? Did you see that from TV? Did you see that between your parents? Did you see that with your older siblings or relatives? Where in the world would it come to a child like that young that I could put my parents against one another?
The only thing I could think of, and I don't have a clear, I mean, this is like my earliest memory.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I think maybe I saw my sisters and my brothers sort of doing their own version of it, you know, sort of like.
Yeah. So, Ian, you were upset with your mom that she would not breastfeed you.
Right.
But were you upset about something else? Like, you made an extreme move because you couldn't get what you want. Was there some other upset you were dealing with that now you can reflect on? For example, were you upset that mom and dad were getting a divorce or were divorced anyway? You were mad about that? This was just added on to it? Or no?
I mean, it would all be speculation, but I think maybe more attention, right? You know, there was a lot of kids involved, and they got their own stuff going on, so I got to be the center of attention, of everyone's attention.
You certainly were at that moment in that situation, now weren't you?
Yeah.
Did anybody come to your rescue? Did anyone come to attend to you being in between mom and dad pulling you?
No.
No. So what must have that been like?
Well, for me, like at that age, I feel like I was sort of just like a spectator. You know, I was just like witnessing this huge thing go down, and I was sort of like, okay, I'm going to sneak around the back here and not deal with the consequences of me being bad here.
But I can only imagine that you had to have felt so much anxiety at that moment. Did you cry? Did you fall apart? What did you do? Were you just stunned?
I think I cried when my dad let go and I got thrown into a chair. I think I cried a little bit then, but I remember the cops, the conversation, didn't cry at all. I remember being in the back of my dad's car. We used to have he used to put these big blankets in the back of the car for car rides so we could snuggle up in these blankets. And I remember being in the back of his car with the blankets, looking out the window and being like, wow, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, you're okay. All right. So avoid responsibility, in my mind, is the same as blame. I wonder if that is the same for you. And when you describe this avoid responsibility, is that the same as blaming the other parent?
I think it's similar.
Okay.
Let me say what I mean by avoid responsibility.
Go for it.
So I don't think it's avoid responsibility like for your kids, for your job, something like that, right? I think my parents, they had a contentious divorce. I think that, you know, for my dad, like I think he was trying to make it work, and my mom was clear it wasn't going to work, and they were blaming one another for why the relationship didn't work. So it was like, okay, so if I'm a better parent, or if the kids love me, right, then that somehow points to you were at fault in the relationship. So it wasn't even, it almost even wasn't about me as a kid or the kids at all. It could have been a dog, like a dog going, hey, who do you want to come to? And then being like, see, I'm better than you. Like, you're the reason the relationship didn't work.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that was in there. I think that was mixed in there. Now, look, that comes with perspective. I didn't think that at 3 years old. I had no idea. I was just like, oh, I can just sort of show more affection to a parent and get what I want.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That was where you were coming from.
Right, like let me get as much of the stuff that I want as possible.
I get that. So if your parent was saying, okay, you're the reason the marriage didn't work, sort of the not taking responsibility for their own behavior and actions, how did that impact you? Or was there an impact on you when neither parent would take responsibility for their contribution for a marriage not working?
Well, I don't, as a kid, I think it was, other than just me trying to be manipulative, but I think I carry that on into my own life and my own relationships. You know, I'm 39 and I'm single, and, you know, I think on some level, sort of witnessing that sort of has me be a bit cautious in relationships. And if sort of, I don't know. I think maybe there's something there for me, but I mean, I'm working on that, you know, with my therapist, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We all need a therapist,
right.
okay?
But, you know, but that's, I mean,
well, wait,
it's an interesting question.
Yeah, well, I want to pick at that for a second, okay?
Okay.
Because I think there might be something relevant here about where you are. You mentioned 39 and single as if there's something wrong with that. Is there something wrong with being 39 and single?
No. There's nothing inherently wrong with it.
Okay.
You know, it's just a lot of, you know, my friends are, you know,
married with children.
Oh, yeah. Some level of committed relationship, maybe with kids, without kids, but committed relationships. And
okay, so then what I'm hearing is an impact on you with regards to how your parents avoided responsibility, or what other games, we just chose that one for our segment today, but there is an impact on you in terms of how your parents, their contention in their relationship and their divorce and avoiding responsibility. That impact is now you're 39, almost 40.
Right.
And isn't there a movie, 40 and Single?
I'm not almost 40. I mean, I'm just 39.
Okay, fine.
October 9th. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So you have some residue with that, and it has an impact on your intimate relationships.
Yes.
Okay.
But let's just be clear. Like,
Okay,
I'm 100% responsible for my relationships.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
My parents did. I know they did the best they could, and I'm so grateful for them.
Yeah.
You know how. So like, I know we're talking about what didn't work with them, and we're not. But you know, as a whole, like, you know, I have extraordinary parents who are like the best in the world.
Sure
and
are.
you know, I was talking to my dad before this, and he was, you know, they were 23 and 24 or something.
Young.
3 kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what?
Yeah.
I can't imagine. So.
Yeah, let me just digress for a second in that I appreciate you saying what kind of parents they were and that they did do the best that they could with what they knew. And that's an important thing about this show in particular, is that it's not a show that blames parents for what they did or did not do.
Right.
It really is a way to honor the parents for what they went through and what they're going through, as well as to inform future parents and even the parents that are still divorced, how we can be better with one another and with our children so that they can win. So I just want to put that out there again, because we don't want people to walk away like, oh, they're just parent bashing on that show. Right. We're not. We're giving parents tools and resources and insight to make a difference in their children's lives. Now that we've got that to the side, let's go back to what your parents didn't do. And you know what? I really feel very comfortable and free to talk about this because I am a parent of, and I was married for 18 years and with 4 kids and divorced. So you know, whatever I bring up is stuff that I've dealt with myself. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. All right. So Ian.
Yes.
The avoid responsibility, let's go back there. I want to pick at it just a little bit more before we go to another part of our conversation.
Okay.
Again, to me, it sounds like blaming, and that's exactly what you were describing, that your parent blamed the other for the reason for the divorce. And I want to know if in that blaming, was it through you, the children, your father, if only your father, or your mother, if only your mother, or were they blaming one another in the face of one another? And you all observed that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course they were blaming each other. Like, of course they blamed each other. Yeah.
Face to face.
Of course.
Okay.
Face to face, or even separately, you know, in conversations. And, you know, it's interesting how parents will do that, right? So, you know, you'll talk to somebody and say, oh, I never bashed their mother, or I never bashed the father to the kids. Never.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very subtle.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, that's how your mom is.
Yes.
Or that's how your dad is.
Yes.
Right? Or I tried so hard. Right? And really, I'm trying so hard means they're not doing their part. You know, it's like, it's very subtle. And as kids, we pick up on it. We know it.
Absolutely.
Right. And mostly it just flies by, but you're always keeping track. You're always aware. And your parents are your guides in life. So the moment my parents start blaming each other for something, I start to see, okay, that's how relationships work.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Sure.
So then now I'm in a relationship and it's like, all right to blame the other person.
Yeah.
Or, right, it's like, all right to not be responsible. It's all right to have contention, do you know?
Yeah. And blaming in a relationship, what would you say, how that impacts the health of the relationship?
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
I agree.
You gotta be 100% responsible for all of it.
Yeah. How do you do that? How does one take responsibility for their part?
Yeah.
How do they do that, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, you got to be willing to be 100% responsible. So it starts with a willingness.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm willing to be. It's me.
Yeah.
Right. That takes courage. That's the first thing.
That takes courage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be like, all right, something's going on here. I'm around. You know, I got something to do with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because people don't like to be wrong. And if I do what you're saying, or someone does what you're suggesting, then that can be perceived as, well, I must be wrong, and I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not what we're saying. You're not saying this is about right or wrong.
Right.
Okay.
We're more talking about what will work.
What will work.
Right. And if we can go back to what I said about...
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
No right or wrong. What works, what doesn't work.
And what doesn't work.
But if we go back to the beginning when you asked me about experiencing love. So like when we're in a relationship, what's our opportunity in a relationship? Well, our opportunity in a relationship is to be for another person.
What does that mean, to be for another person?
Sort of like, okay, you know, there's components to a relationship. So in other words, you know, there's companionship, there's sex, there's, you know, going on vacation, there's different things. But when you're in a relationship with somebody, like, who can you be for that person? Because the other stuff, you can find other people to do that.
Okay.
You could find someone to go on vacation with. You could find someone to have sex with. You don't need to be in a relationship. But if you're actually going to be in a relationship, you have an opportunity. You have a real opportunity to be there for that person.
Let me see if I get this. So I can be responsible. I can be gentle. I can be open.
Yeah.
I can be open-hearted. I can be thoughtful. These are the beings that you described.
You can be all those things. The other thing is, I'm also not talking about like putting up with stuff. It's not about like, oh, they're a jerk and I'm responsible for that. You got to set up things that like, look, this behavior doesn't work for me.
Okay.
And that's also a way of being responsible.
Okay.
You know, you identify behaviors or things that they say rather than a generalization like you're just annoying me.
Yes.
No, they're not annoying you. There's a behavior that annoys you. And if you can identify that behavior, ask them not to do that behavior, then there's going to be a new freedom in that relationship. If they can actually hear it and get it for what it is. There's simply a behavior that's not working. It's not about you not working. It's just this one little behavior.
That is a fine distinction. I wish that we could probe into that more, but I see that our time is coming to an end, and I want to do this game with you very quickly, all right? So the way that this game works is, and the void responsibility game that we're going to play really quickly is, I'm going to make a statement, and then you're going to finish it, and you're just going to go like this, okay? Rapid fire statement. You're going to finish it with 1 or 2 quick words, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
All right. Ian.
Yes.
If my parents stayed together today, I would be
happy.
What I want most for my parents now is
love and fulfillment.
Oh, you're doing really well with this game, Ian. I wish my mother had given me more
attention.
I wish my father had given me more
attention.
You're an attention deficit child, huh?
I want more. Give it all to me.
If I could go back in time and change one thing about my parents' divorce, it would be
my behavior.
I am a better person from my parents' divorce because
my parents are extraordinary people. They've taught me so much.
Okay, that was more than one word.
Okay. I got it.
The best advice to parents playing the avoid responsibility game is
be aware, and you have an opportunity to be aware. Be aware.
Be aware.
Yeah.
Children can help parents take responsibility by
just being honest.
What most divorcing parents don't do but should do is
talk to their kids like they're adults. Ooh. Be honest. Yeah.
Okay. What divorcing parents don't need to fear is
that their kids will love them less for anything they do.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, I'm going to give you a chance now to talk directly to the parents and the children. Just give them the last bit of advice or inspiration, whatever comes up for you in your camera.
Okay. Well, first I just want to say that my parents are like a gift to the world, and I love them so much, and I'm so just grateful that they were my parents. And so what I would say to parents out there is, look, I would not generalize. I'd be as specific as possible. I would identify behaviors or things that are said that upset you, and I would just deal with it from the perspective of whether it works or doesn't work rather than right or wrong. Too often it's about right and wrong, and inside it puts you in a box. And I think our opportunity to be with one another is the most extraordinary opportunity we have as human beings. So while you have that time, be as loving as you can be, as generous as you can be, compassionate as you can be, and and not perfect, and that's it.
And how can people reach you, Ian?
You can follow me on Instagram, Gareth Fitzgerald. That's my mom's maiden name, my last name. And you can see me on YouTube, just Ian Fitzgerald Reviews Movies. And and that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching The Divorce Game. Be sure to email me what you learned and what game you want to hear more about. You may email me at thedivorcegame@gmail.com.